we test Iris from The Witcher.
This is the Kitsune clan, a group of sword enthusiasts who like cosplay, reenactment, and historical martial arts. If you have similar interests, feel welcomed.
We have already looked at two blade weapons from The Witcher, and both of them were interesting. So let's continue in this. Links to videos on the two already discussed Witcher weapons are in the description box. Today we will look at the blade weapon Iris. And this one is interesting for several aspects. It's different from the first two, and it also brings us into some trouble already, so let's tackle that one first. Most people address Iris as a sword. Not all of them. Some people call it a saber, and that's due to the blade shape. So, should we call it a saber or a sword? That depends. In German language, the case is easier. In English, the word sword is not used in the same way as in German. It seems to have a size-related aspect. In German, it's more about the exact shape of the blade. Iris would usually not fall into the category of a sword, so it would not be called Schwert. It would be called Messer, if you know your stuff, because most people think Messer is a short weapon, and that's what we see when we go into English. The usual translation of Messer is knife, and a knife implies something shorter. But in medieval times, Messer meant a blade that had a certain curvature to it and was usually only equipped with one sharp edge. That brings us back to the saber. In this way, the saber could be recognized as a special type of messer, but most people don't go this route. As a side note, sellsword arts recently discussed whether a katana should be considered a saber, and they basically came to the point that in principle, yes. That is in fact not new. Wolfgang Ettig wrote a book on samurai swords back in the 80s or early 90s, where he came to the same point. Samurai swords are in principle sabers, and if you would go the consequent way, then samurai swords would be messer. You might be aware that the case is even much more complicated because there are additional weapons like the falchion or falchion, however you want to pronounce it, that mixes even more characters of the sword and the big knife, because these ones have a pommel. That's a general problem, and quite some other channels have already addressed the issue. We superimpose our modern day view onto historical objects, and that is even done in several different languages, and we don't really know how to deal with that, because in most cases the specific sword in the specific region is there called simply sword, and that's what the name means. But in an international comparison and a comparison over longer times, these local names for sword may address a very specific subtype of it. We cannot solve this here. We can only come to a point of understanding, and that means I will tell you how I will use the name, how I will address Iris here, and then you can hopefully follow my type of thoughts. To make it short, I will compare Iris especially to medieval Messer. To be more specific, lange Messer or langes Messer, so long knife, or also Kriegsmesser. And it is in fact pretty close to it if we look at it historically. The way the crossguard looks, the handle looks, and the blade looks, we can definitely consider this a type of messer. That immediately means everyone interested in historical European martial arts in Messerfechten is well off with this, because you can see the performance is not bad. It can compete with the other blade weapons, so swords, from The Witcher without problems. The handle is long enough to place two hands there, not super comfortably, but it works out. We don't have a pommel, that's what you expect from this type of weapon. And the crossguard is simple, but it works. And we did not rip it off, which is a big plus already on a PU foam weapon. We can use iris just as we would use a historical type of messer. So we can perform cuts with a long edge, we can strike with the backside or the tip, especially when we use the Meisterheue. We can in principle use it in Mordschlag, so strike when holding it reverse, striking with the crossguard. We have no pommel, so we cannot use that. But different from the other two blade weapons from The Witcher, we don't see modifications that would make any of these easier. We had that with Arendite. Arendite was especially good in Mordschlag. We had it with Eredin's sword, which was especially good in half sword. Here with Iris we have nothing of that. We have a weapon that is very simple in overall design, and it's simple because it's not very much derived from historical counterparts. It's almost an accurate copy. The main point of critique when it comes to Iris is the handle is somehow strange. And that's also where it derives from the original counterparts. You don't see it too much in the videos, but when you use it, the handle tends to rotate within the hand. And that's independent whether you grip it in thumb hold or in normal hold. It's somehow awkward. That is due to the fact that there are two protrusions coming down from the crossguard along the handle. These constructions are historically present, usually reaching onto the blade, and then you can see them, for example, helping locking into the scabbard or things like that. But here they reach onto the handle, and that's awkward. That makes the handle shape in the part closer to the crossguard not super comfortable, and it becomes much easier and much better in feel as soon as you simply remove these protruding structures. And that's what we did. We simply cut it off, later on glued something onto it, and you know what, we usually use gaffer's tape for that, so duct tape. And that works then really, really well. The overall fun with this type of weapon is it's light enough to be used with one hand, so you can also fool around with it like we do here. And it's also long enough, the handle, as we already said, to use it with both hands. It's rather sturdy and can take quite some beating, but in fact we managed while stabbing to shear off the tip. Yet not fully, so we could repair that with duct tape. As a final verdict, cool weapon. That means we will further explore weapons from The Witcher in future videos. For this time, hope we could inspire you. See you around next time.